What's good, friends list, episode 118 of the Gamecast coming at you. Halo Infinite is in the midst of its second technical preview, ahead of its December launch, and while most of the reception has been quite positive, some lingering questions still remain unanswered. So, this week, we dive into our thoughts on where the game currently stands as we await the second half of that test that welcomes Big Team Battle this weekend. Does the new map Behemoth fit the mold of popular classic Halo maps? Are some issues simpler fixes like balancing, or could bigger issues arise down the road? We dig into it. Also, Xbox Game Pass could be at a staggering subscriber count. Xbox Series X and S may continue to have shortages for quite some time, and much, much more coming up on the newest jam-packed episode of the Gamecast.
Now the fun begins.
Budget.
Stop! You violated the law.
Welcome back to another episode of the Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox, Xbox Game Pass, and of course PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversation around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So, be sure to subscribe to us, rate us, review us, all that jazz, the whole rigmarole. Every week that I tell you, you got it down pat at this point. If you're new, go and do that, but that shit helps. You know, just go do it. And follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games like, and our dope giveaways. I'm your host, as always, Travis White, aka Travlis, on most internet platforms. Joining me, as always, my partner in crime, my co-pilot on this adventure we go through every week of what is the shit show of this train that usually gets derailed. My co-pilot, Mike Peapack. Mike, what's good? What's going on? And what have you been playing? I know one thing you've been playing a little bit when you could, I guess, but we'll talk about that in the bigger part of the show. But what have you been playing in general? I think I have one idea though.
Bro, it's bad. It's really bad. What do you think it is?
I think it's an addiction, a little crack pipe called Diablo 2 Resurrected, maybe?
Yes. Yeah, it's pretty brutal right now. I can't get away from it. I can't get free from it. It is what it is. Yeah, I have a sorceress that I finally have built up, have some gear farmed, been farming some gear, got to level 82, and I have a 72 assassin that I kind of got far enough just to get some gear for my sorceress, so I could just farm out with my sorceress and then get gear for the other characters that I want to make. But yeah, it's been pretty bad since release.
I was going to say, how many hours do you think you've put in?
More than I'd like to admit.
So what about, I guess, like, I bought the game. I haven't had a chance to really dig into it too much.
Mm-hmm.
What about this build of this game, this remaster, really, I guess, makes it stand out, makes it competent, I guess, and compared to, we've seen Blizzard drop the ball before. Clearly, with Warcraft 3 Reforged, so many people were so high on that game, only to see it just come out to a dumpster fire. What made this time around with this game really knock it out of the park for a lot of people?
I think it captures that nostalgia. It's like nostalgia in a bottle almost. Like if anyone could drive to their supermarket and while they were grocery shopping, if there was like nostalgia, literally a bottle, instead of it labeled Michael Special Stuff, it's labeled nostalgia on the shelf. I'm fairly certain most of us that are getting up there, I think once you hit 21 plus, you start feeling nostalgic about certain things. And obviously nostalgia lenses are always 2020, but I feel like myself, I'd pay a pretty decent amount for a little bit of a nostalgia in a bottle. And I think that's what Diablo Resurrected truthfully is to a lot of people. Now, I'm not going to come on the show and pretend that Diablo 2 Resurrected is free of its issues or free of its bugs, because it's certainly not. In fact, before release, I will say, like, Vicarious Visions did a terrific job with the graphics and all the hard work that they did. It's unfortunate that they let out a blog post right before release that had some of the concerns that people had kind of come to light. So basically, it seems like Blizzard kind of forced a date on Vicarious Visions, and Vicarious Visions wasn't going to be able to provide or present this date in a timely manner. And at that point in time, Blizzard was like, well, hell or high water, X date. So they actually had to re-roll back the build because they found a bug in the beta build, basically. So long story short, we got a build of a game that, like, there's some flaws and there's some issues that I get frustrated with, but it's not something that completely turns me off. Like, does the game crashing every once in a while annoy me? Absolutely, but it's not the biggest deal in the world. Do the servers taking a shit every once in a while annoy me? Absolutely. But for this experience, to let people know, like, going back to 2001, you're talking 20 years ago, I played this game for the first time. And if you take 20 years off my life, that puts me at 8. And I spent a lot of my younger years with Diablo 2 on and off, and it's always been a game that I'm like, it's one of those games that fall into like it's not as big of a crack pipe as Counter-Strike is to me, but it's really close because I fall into these patterns where, like, every waking moment of free time I have for a month will just be on Diablo 2. And then I'll get off of it. Like, I will just exhaust it, and then it's like I move on.
Right.
I kind of have a little bit of a longer shelf life with Adam, or than Adam does, because Adam's the type of person who, like, he will hit death loop for a week, and that's all he does.
Right.
But after that week, it's like he will never play it again. And, like, I get that. Like, I can understand that. But for me, it takes a little bit longer for a game to sink its hooks into me, and then it takes a longer time for me to get off. But with this game in particular, they just did such a tasteful job upgrading the graphics and not changing the original experience, basically, because it didn't need to, because people still grinded Diablo 2 ladder resets. I grinded one as recent as like 6 or 7 months ago. Like, people still grind this game even in the old state that it was in. So all they really had to do was bring it along, keep original experiences, unlike Warcraft 3, because they wanted to change it up for whatever reason, or strip it down because they had to. Whatever the case is, like, they just presented a more original experience, I guess you could say. And it's just a timeless game. Like, Diablo 2, even when Diablo 4 comes out, is going to have a big player base. Like, it just is. No matter what Diablo 4 and Diablo 3 could ever do. And that's kind of where Blizzard's behind the 8 ball. And I know this is a really long tangent about what I play, but as a fan of Diablo for so long, I feel for Blizzard on kind of like a Bungie type scale. Like, I'm still mad that the way Bungie left Halo, but, like, I can understand that, like, once you do something so great, there's no way, there's only, like, you can only go down. Especially with Diablo, you can only go backwards. Like, I'm sorry, like, some people like Diablo 3 more than Diablo 2. I don't know if it's just because you didn't experience Diablo 2 in the height of it, or you don't get what Diablo 2 really is to so many people. But, like, once you got past Diablo 2, there's nothing, like, I'm sorry, it's just like there's no competing with Diablo 2. So no matter what they do with Diablo 3 or Diablo 4, it's going to fall short in some people's expectations, mine being one of them. But I think we as a community, and I'm speaking on behalf of, like, huge Diablo 2 fans, we just need to temper our expectations and realize, like, they're not going to reskin D2, make new quests, make new acts, and just move you out. Like, that's not what Diablo 4 is going to be. It's not what Diablo 3 or Diablo 4 should be. It should be new creations. But this D2R feels like a way that, like, if they can keep Vicarious Visions bug patching, fixing this game, if they can get it into a working state, you're going to be, like, I and other people are going to be playing D2R for another 20 years. So it'll be 40 years post-release, we're still going to be playing it. I can guarantee that.
Well, that's impressive to say the least, because, I mean, you have obviously a much deeper lineage out of, our friend group of who plays Diablo, like you, Adam, and myself, really. Like, I'm obviously bottom of the barrel when it comes to that. Like, I've played all the Diablo games, but not to the extent you guys have. But I'm really excited to get into it and actually, like, kind of sink my teeth in, really, not for the first time, but for a time that, like, I could actually really lay heavily into it. Trying to find that time right now because there's 50 other things going on. Because I'll be honest, I haven't even for once, I haven't been able to play a ton of games this week, which fucking blows. Just because I've had, like, tons of work stuff, and then plus taking courses and things like that. It's just been super busy, but
You're just a busy guy.
I'm just a busy guy, you know. That's what sucks about being an adult. They lie to you, and it's like, you know, oh, you'll get to make money, you get to do it. No. Being an adult fucking blows. Shit blows. Anyways, but yes, that's probably going to be my next game that I kind of have set up to knock over, even though there's like 50 other fucking things coming out, because we're getting to the holiday season now, especially really after when this goes live. I consider like October 1st like the start of, hey, this is the fall holiday, like get ready, because everybody and their brother is going to be releasing a pretty decently sized chunked game. Like fucking, I know this is an Xbox show, but Metroid Dread coming out next week. Not long after that, Battlefield. Not long after that, obviously Halo down the line, Forza. The list just keeps, it's going to go on and on and on and on and on, and just more shit's going to keep coming out. So eventually I'm going to sit down with Diablo 2 and kind of go through it and really give it my full attention, just because it's a game that I have a lot of nostalgia like you for Diablo in a much more casual sense, but it's still a franchise that I have so many fond memories with that, like you said, it's for you, Diablo 2 definitely is going to be that game that you keep coming back to, obviously, but I think about that sometimes where, you know, we always talked about it, I feel, when we were younger, like, and now we're kind of seeing it in the incarnation of, you know, games as a service and live service games, and how we're finally seeing it actually be implemented even with sports titles like, it's no longer Pro Evolution Soccer. I think it's like eFootball or something like that from Konami, where they're just not releasing, like they're releasing it as a platform and you just buy the roster updates. And things like that where it's like, okay, well, you find the formula of, you know, say, you know, Halo is always the example with community because it's so split in different ways. Like, okay, you know, there's people who love the classic formula of Halo, you know, and so many people being like, well, why don't they just stay with that, you know, instead of, you know, doing in different directions and things like that, like, which I get, but then it's like, you know, where do you go from there? Like, do you just keep iterating and do new map packs and things like that, where you see games like CSGO and, you know, but they're always updating, you know, minor changes throughout the game that end up having pretty big ramifications that changes the way you play, but it at its core is the same gameplay for the most part. Like, it's just a whole ball of wax that I think is really interesting to think about, like you saying, like, really, like, it peaked at that, like, where do you go from there? And it is hard, and there's a reason why it probably took, you know, 10 plus years for Diablo 3 to come out, because it's, you know, how do you adjust this? How do you make this better? How do you iterate on this? How do you provide a product that is, you know, you don't want to necessarily, I mean, granted, when Activision stepped in with Blizzard and whatnot and, you know, bought Blizzard, it's a little different. They could also say, here, we're doing this, like, we're making a Diablo 3 kind of thing, but, like, you know, you have a ton of the team, I'm sure, at that point on World of Warcraft and everything like that. Like, you know, where's the bandwidth, and do we want to take that away if we're not going to make something that's purposeful and meaningful that people want to play? And Diablo 3, you know, obviously had a lot of issues at its launch, but turned into a game that a ton of people loved, and me included. But it definitely seems like at times where it's like, there's a reason why it took that long to come out. And there's a reason why, like, you know, people have tried to, like, you know, catch lightning in a bottle again with Halo. Not to, I don't want to say it like that, but, like, they've been chasing that dragon of trying to get to that feeling of having another Halo 3 again. You know, Xbox and Microsoft have, and, you know, who the hell knows if that's going to come with Infinite or whatnot, to each their own, but, like, you know, stuff like that it's just going to be, it's just really interesting to think about, like, the formula of games and preserving that while also iterating on it, and it's just really interesting. So, but yeah, I've been, and I guess on my end too, just kind of like stuff I've been playing. Like I said, I haven't been playing a ton. I've been taking a lot of coursework on, you know, when I do have downtime with work, and watching some TV shows and getting caught up on that. Plus two, I'm a little sick. So while I've wanted to, like, sit down and do all this, by the time I get done with all that stuff to, like, sit down to play something, I'm dead tired. So, but I have been plugging away at Deathloop. Been plugging away at a couple different things. I did start up, what's it called? I've been wanting to, The Forgotten City, that originally came out as a mod for Skyrim. that now has its own standalone release of it. Really a mystery, a time-traveling mystery, going back in time to like an ancient Roman city, kind of unraveling that mystery. Very much feels like, I mean, granted, it is much more of a standalone. You could feel it's definitely iterated on, you know, the creation engine and whatnot and taken that and done its own thing, but like, it definitely feels like at the basis of it a Skyrim mod, but very much so a very full-fleshed own game. Like, it feels really good. And especially, too, I forgot I picked it up when it was on sale because I've been wanting to play it. And I didn't want to necessarily just get the mod, but, you know, I wanted to play this fully iterated, you know, realized release of this. So, picked that up, I think, like a week ago or something like that, and finally got a chance to kind of sit down and play it a little bit. Didn't get too far into it just because I had tons of other stuff going on, but I'm hoping once I kind of get on the back end of this weekend, I'll have some time to breathe and just kind of sit down and play games all day and whatnot. So, like, I'm hoping I'll catch up on that. I want to get that, finish Deathloop. I'm very close to that. I'm pissed I haven't finished that yet. And starting to another couple of things. But yeah, in general, it's really interesting, like we were talking about with the nostalgia stuff. I'm really curious to kind of see where games go in the direction with so many of these remasters coming out that, you know, is there going to be enough bandwidth for so many of these franchises to do that and kind of appease fans of the franchise in general? But I digress, Mike. I think it's time we end the button mash before we get too long in the tooth, since we're on a little bit of time crunch today. But we won't stop that anyways. But
I'm stopping you to say Bethesda. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at you. I've seen Skyrim get retouched up a billion times. I just want Oblivion retouched. Fuck, I'll take Morrowind too. Like, just one of them. I'm looking at you.
What? You know what? When Sky Oblivion comes out, none of that will matter.
Well, I don't want to play Oblivion in Skyrim graphics.
They've updated past that. I mean, granted, yes, you're still doing the first iteration of the creation. Well, an updated version of the creation engine, but not the true like creation engine 2 or whatever they're doing Starfield in. Yes, but like it's at least you'll get a little bit of a bump there. But I agree. Yes, I would like to just get a full in-house remaster of Oblivion. That would be great, but we damn well know that's just not going to happen at this point. Like, it's just
right.
It's just never. It's not going to happen. Stop trying to make it happen. Except I won't. We'll keep fucking carrying that flag. We'll be those people. That's fine.
Come on, Todd Howard. There's money to be made.
There is, and that's the thing. Granted, now they're with Microsoft, I guess money isn't necessarily super a concern because we don't sell 100 million copies of something. It doesn't matter. It's fine. Well, oh God, like Scrooge McDuck into the big pond of money and pull a couple pennies out. We'll be all right. Anyways,
they have to break the titan that is Microsoft to make Bethesda go broke now.
Right, exactly. Anyways, though, let's get into Button Mash. If you're new to the show, Button Mash is where we go over our quick hit news stories for the week, get you set up before we head into our big topics. So, of course, kicking off Button Mash, gotta start with the OG, Bungie. They have published a blog from the company's CEO, Pete Parsons, outlining steps the Destiny 2 developer is taking to improve diversity and inclusion at the workplace, including removing a controversial employee contract clause. In a lengthy blog post, Parsons discussed how Bungie has reacted to recent months where companies like Activision Blizzard and Ubisoft grapple with the fallout of gender discrimination and sexual harassment at the workplace. As part of Bungie's promise to continue improving its workplace culture, Parsons announced that it is, quote, eliminating the mandatory arbitration clause in all employee agreements. Mandatory arbitration is an agreement where employees settle disputes with their employers privately instead of in the court system. Forced arbitration clauses prevent employees from suing employers through the legal system and can keep details of their grievance from becoming public. The forced arbitration clause is in place at some of the biggest studios and has been a flashpoint in recent years as companies like Ubisoft, Riot, and Activision Blizzard face unrest over workplace culture. EVO, the big-ass fighting tournament for games like Street Fighter and Super Smash Bros. Melee and all that, the 2021 iteration of its return to Las Vegas, has unfortunately been canceled due to rising concerns surrounding the Delta variant of COVID-19. In a tweet, EVO's organizers said that they will continue to work on bringing back big live events. The statement said, in part, quote, "The players invited to participate in the EVO 2021 showcase represent many of the best fighters in the world. We're incredibly saddened to cancel the event." EVO 2021 was scheduled to take place in Las Vegas on November 27th and 28th. The lineup was set to include Guilty Gear Strive, Mortal Kombat 11, Skullgirls Second Encore, Street Fighter V Championship Edition, and Tekken 7. EVO is still scheduled to hold an in-person event in Las Vegas in August of 2022. Netflix's big foray into games is now underway in earnest, and one of its first major acquisitions is a darling from the indie space. In a blog post on its official site, Night School Studios announced it would be bringing its adventure game expertise to the streaming service. Quote, Night School wants to stretch our narrative and design aspirations across distinctive original games with heart, Night School co-founder Sean Krankles wrote. Netflix gives film, TV, and now game makers an unprecedented canvas to create and deliver excellent entertainment to millions of people. Our exploration in narrative gameplay and Netflix's track record of supporting diverse storytellers was such a natural pairing. It felt like both teams came to the conclusion instinctively. It's a natural fit. Night School Studios found fame with games like Oxenfree and Afterparty, story-driven adventures that mesh well with Netflix's approach. Oxenfree is likewise a supernatural coming-of-age story, which is exactly the kind of story that is apt to play with Netflix's audience. Yes, so play Oxenfree. That game's really fucking dope. And Afterparty too, but really liked Oxenfree. We already knew that Microsoft was planning to release its cloud game streaming service onto Xbox Series X and S and Xbox One this holiday season if you are subscribed to Game Pass Ultimate. Now, select Xbox insiders can test the feature out on their Xbox consoles. Starting right now, Xbox insiders with the Alpha and Alpha Skip Ahead rings will be able to access Xbox Cloud Gaming right from their Xbox hardware. The inclusion of Xbox Cloud Gaming on consoles will allow users the chance to play games through the cloud before committing to taking up storage on their Xbox console to install a new game. EA has revealed the dates for its upcoming Battlefield 2042 open beta, and it begins next week. More specifically, you'll be able to jump or perhaps in wingsuit glide and whatnot, onto battlefields from October 6th through October 9th. Anybody interested can simply download the beta and play. Alongside the announcement of these open beta dates, EA also revealed what players can expect during the 4-day period. For starters, only one map will be in the beta, and it's called Orbital. In the map, there is a massive space rocket counting down, and the fight on this map takes place around its imminent launch. This map and the chaos that is sure to occur on it can be seen through the new Battlefield 2042 official open beta trailer released today, so be sure to check that out for an in-game look at Orbital. In terms of what you'll be doing on Orbital, you'll be playing the game's Conquest mode. The classic Battlefield mode will see teams fight in specific sectors of the map while attempting to catch and take over several flags that serve as control points. Rather than fight over a single control point, you'll essentially be fighting over multiple at any given time. Square Enix has announced that Marvel's Avengers is coming to Xbox Game Pass this week. Revealed in an Xbox Wire post, Marvel's Avengers will be added to Xbox Game Pass on September 30th. It will be available across PC, console, and the cloud. The Xbox Game Pass version will be the complete package of all Marvel's Avengers content so far, including Kate Bishop, Hawkeye, and the brand new Black Panther War for Wakanda expansion. The game's arrival on Game Pass will come just in time for the Quad XP event, which runs from September 30th to October 4th in celebration of the game's 1-year anniversary. So go out there, download that. I'm really rooting for Marvel's Avengers because it's had a rocky launch, but I trust Marvel games. I think Bill Roseman does an incredible job seeking good, talented teams. So it seems like the team's putting a lot of effort into kind of redirecting this ship and turning it around. So if you have Xbox Game Pass, give it a chance. Halo Infinite's second multiplayer tech preview was this past weekend, and as you can guess, data miners dug through the game and uncovered a lot of interesting images, from vehicle attachments to Spartan poses and even a render of the Scorpion battle tank. First spotted by Redditor Marco Polo 444, the user posted a series of links and images which show off a ton of content that did not make it into the latest technical preview for Halo Infinite. The post suggests that a lot of the content will make its way into Halo Infinite at some point. This includes a helmet attachment that adds a Santa Claus hat onto the Spartan, 3 images of maps that we have yet to see in the technical preview, and a series of emblems that seem to take inspiration from famous memes. Additionally, Twitter user @HaloCreation posted a video of playing the technical preview with split screen enabled. Perhaps the most interesting thing from data miners this past weekend comes from Twitter user @Halo Notices MX, I'm sorry if I butchered that, who tweeted a thread of various vehicles. Some were included in this weekend's tech preview, but some, such as the Scorpion, was discovered. One of the biggest shows currently on Netflix is the South Korean import Squid Game. Now, fan-made Squid Game experiences are popping up all over Roblox. Squid Game was released on September 17th and has quickly become one of the most buzzed about shows on Netflix, becoming the first South Korean television show to hit the #1 spot on Netflix's top 10. This popularity seems to be reaching across mediums, as in recent days, fan-made games based on the same deadly challenges seen in the Squid Games have begun cropping up all over Roblox. There are already several Squid Game Roblox remakes on the site's popular section, which is impressive, as recent investigation by People Make Games revealed just how difficult it is to get your game featured on Roblox's front page. And finally, Microsoft has announced that the October 2021 Xbox games with gold are Aereo, Hover, Castlevania Harmony of Despair, and Resident Evil Code Veronica X. These 4 titles represent a value of $74.96 and come with hundreds of gamer score points to earn. Aereo on Xbox One will be available starting October 1st to the 31st, and Hoover on Xbox One will be available starting on October 16th and lasting until November 15th. And for Castlevania and Resident Evil, those are both the respective same time frames for that. So go over there, get those. Mike, anyways, though, that's Button Mash. Anything you want to run back before we get into our big topics for this week?
Yeah. I mean, being someone who is a huge fan of esports, no matter what game it is. Obviously, I'm kind of gutted for the fighting game community because Evo being canceled. Mm-hmm. Obviously, understandable circumstances and reasoning. I can't really argue with that. I will say, like, I feel kind of lucky because, you know, whether it happens or not, I'm thinking they're gonna want it to, obviously. But you know, we got an announcement for a Halo event. Whether or not it actually does happen, we'll see. Mm-hmm. I'm confident that it will happen, but I just feel so bad for the folks that have worked so hard at their craft over the last 2 years. I know Halo's gone through the longest LAN drought in Halo history as far as like major LANs, which is crazy to think about. Mm-hmm. I know like people are dying to get back out there and share how hard they've been working at their craft and things of that nature. I really hope that we get this under control in a more reasonable time frame so people can get out there, start doing the things they love again. But I will say, like, with the HCS event being announced, you know, 9-10 days, and I'll talk about this more in the longer portion, but 9 or 10 days after release, and then it's like 2 weeks before Christmas, man. Like, you're cutting it close with the Delta variant. If someone gets sick, it's just a whole ball of wax. So Evo probably taking the safer measure, and I know Las Vegas isn't the most they have been a little bit staunch on pushing back against COVID regulations because their entire economy relies on tourism and people traveling there. Mm-hmm. So it all makes sense, and I just hope that those guys get to compete on a LAN event very soon. Outside of that, I think I just want to say good luck to EA with the open beta. I know some developers recently have done open betas really well. Some have left something to be desired, and we'll talk about that here coming up. But overall, there's no better way to test your game than to get these betas out there and let users break your game. Because if we saw anything from the BXB glitch from Halo Infinite, it's that when you give people time with your game and not your pro team or your testers or this or that or your coders, you give nerds, you know, time with your game, they're going to break it. Mm-hmm. So the best thing you could ever do is to get it in their hands as much as humanly possible before their final release. And people will break the game. Look at Halo Infinite. There's plenty of things that maybe should have and shouldn't have made it through Q&A. I don't know. But, you know, those things get in the hands of common everyday people and we break them. Mm-hmm. And that's just the way it is. You know, we test the game for these things. We got into custom games early in the beta or in the tech preview before they patched it. Like, we find things out about your game that you don't want us to, and that's just the way it is. So good luck to EA. Hopefully everyone and all my Battlefield fans love it. I might actually be giving it a go because it does look pretty good, and I hope it's a good game, and I hope everyone has fun with it.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, you definitely kind of hit the nail on the head when it comes to getting games just physically in the hands of players. And the community is that these games have, for most, like, I understand how development teams, hey, we don't want to show our game just yet. Like, we want to do X, Y, and Z. We want to give it the best, because the word of mouth and public opinion can be damning at times if, people don't get their hands on it beforehand or don't have a chance to or whatever. And that's why it's so important to not only for public perception to get that, but also too, it's the idea of just having a second set of eyes really on something. There's a reason why people proofread things. There's a reason why people, go outside and do focus groups or things like that. Like, beta testing is just like that, only on a much more technical standpoint, where it is, hey, go ahead and play this. Go ahead, do whatever, break it, whatever, because we want to know what the general player will be doing that maybe we didn't see while we're designing this, because we have one perspective on this game and how we're approaching it or whatever. It may be a little different. We may see things different than average Joe Blow who's going to play our game, and they're encountering X, Y, and Z bug that we may never have done that because we don't play the game that way or whatever. Like, when we were designing the game, we weren't thinking about that. So that gives an option to go in there and, actually do that. And it's just, it only helps people by, breaking the game, and more importantly, having these beta tests to get in there, bug report, anything, crash report, whatever have you, to let, this game, let the people working on this game or the games in general, like, get in there and fix these problems so you're not dealing with this on whatever the game launches. So I totally agree. It's if you can get in, I'm going to jump in and probably play it next weekend, just because anybody can jump in and play it. Because this is one Battlefield, like you were saying, that I actually can see myself potentially playing, like, earlier on, not just, I'm going to pick it up on Black Friday or on a Steam sale or something. Like, I don't know if I'm going to play it at launch, but, like, I definitely have an interest to get in and play this one. So I want to see what it's about. And I also, too, want to be able to, help EA put this game in the best possible light, because it seems like a lot of people are excited about this one. So any way that we can help development teams produce the best products possible, like, jump in there, help out, do that. So anyways, Mike, let's head into our big topics for this week. And of course, we got to at least kick it off with starting with, we had another Halo Infinite technical preview. The second one start this past weekend. We also have the second half of that one this weekend coming up, with Big Team Battle being added to it and being the suite of PvP options this week. But it was a roller coaster weekend, I'd like to say, for, I think, a lot of people in terms of highs, lows, and everything in between, especially me thinking about it. I mean, there were times where I was playing the game and I'm like, God damn, this feels great. And then there was times where I was, messaging our group saying, I'm close to calling this game bad. Like, kind of things. And granted, like we talked about, it's, for all intents and purposes, a beta. This is a early build of the game, a test build that they're wanting to see how far you could either go in breaking this or what we can push towards, so when on December 8th, when everybody hops on to play this game, it's the best possible iteration. So I completely understand there are going to be some restrictions, caveats, some, choice things left off because of them trying to get this in the best possible light and be able to give the people testing this the best possible way to make the game better. But really interested to kind of get your thoughts on this, Mike, because this is the legitimate first time you're getting to play this game. You missed the first one for some unknown reason, but now this was the first time you were able to get your hands on it, and I know you had a lot of opinions on it, so I kind of want to give you the floor of it. What do you think kind of is the current state of this game in the current build that was out right now? Just kind of, where do you see this? Like, I guess what are your just top level thoughts while sitting down playing this game, currently going into this second weekend?
Yeah, I think when I was first playing the game and playing against bots the first night, so they released it Thursday for preload. I think that's exactly the way the timeline worked out. And I got into it on Thursday evening, played against some bots, whatever. Wasn't happy with how the game felt or how it played at all. I felt like it was really clunky. I felt like the aiming was really bad. But once I got to tweaking my settings with my controller quite a bit, it did start to get a little bit better. But playing on PC, there's some issues with the way that the game is currently coded, and that's something that I'll get into, at a deeper level at some point. But basically, what I look at when I see this game, I found myself sometimes during the beta being like smiling and like having some fun with it, much like you. And then also I found sometimes rolling my eyes and being like, wow, I can't believe this type of thing. So when I played multiplayer against other people, and based on the general consensus I see from the general public, it seems like it's doing great among casual fans, which is like promising. That's something that you need to get longevity, because the people that compete in esports and go to tournaments and stuff, they're going to play the game. Like, they're going to be there, they're going to support it, because that's what they're called to do. That's what they want to do. They want to compete. They want to be the best they can be. They want to, beat other people at their games. They want to do all those things. So with all that being said, the fact that I saw a lot of casual fans really enjoying the beta and really enjoying this technical preview, I guess is the proper terminology, is promising for the game going forward. As far as a competitive standpoint, there's a lot of things that I'm really concerned about. But again, we saw a more social approach to the game, and I'm here for it, because quite frankly, that's something that we really need to tap into. We need to keep the people that just enjoy playing the game, enjoy playing Halo and want to play Halo around. So I was excited to see that those people did enjoy the game, but to kid yourself and pretend like there's no glaring issues is pretty naive, in my opinion. And that's just being honest. Like, there's a lot of stuff with this game that I'm still concerned by December it's not going to be fixed. But we have a tournament 10 days after release. Hopefully the game fucking works. Hopefully when we go, like, they have a lot scheduled for this tournament just from an esports standpoint. I know there might be some of you out there that don't really pay attention to esports, but I'm going to give just like a brief overview of what it's looking like from a competitor's standpoint, just so you guys can understand why there's going to be people on Reddit, why you're going to see competitors on Twitter, why you're going to see competitors on Twitch and YouTube complaining, but you're going to also see other competitors that kind of have their hands tied. And it's a smart thing that they did, having these partnered teams. So HCS, the Halo Championship Series, went out and partnered with like 8 or 9 organizations, signed some of the top pros to them. Some of them were already a team. Some of them have formed teams. Basically, they're the top competitors of Halo over the last, 3 or 4 years. And they're signed to these teams that now have official contracts with HCS. What that entails, I have no clue, but it seems kind of crazy. So if you're following people like Lethal and you're following these other pros, who Lethal has generally been very critical over games in general, he's kind of been, blowing smoke. A lot of these other pros have been blowing smoke about this game, but they're kind of contractually forced to, because if you think about it, if the esport dies for them, it doesn't do them any good. They're on contract to play these esports. They're going to get paid. The more the prize pool is, the more they're going to get paid. So it's silly for them to badmouth it. The people that you're going to want to look out for are people like Snipedown, who's not signed to a team. He kind of has, and he's always been kind of cynical. So take that with a grain of salt. Like, I love Snipedown. I love Eric Rona and everything he's done for Halo, and he continues to compete on Apex. And he's always been a bit, I don't know how to put this tactfully. I don't want to like offend him, but for some of the listeners that aren't, English might not be their first language. He's like, there's ways that we say things in English that basically soften the blow. And that's one of the things that foreign to the United States don't understand, is like, sometimes people call them blunt because they haven't learned the ways to kind of let people down easy, if you will. So for me, like, to tell you guys out there that might not speak English as your first language, like, it's a little bit of a whiner. I mean, it's just the way it is. Like, he's always kind of had a negative outlook on things. So if you do follow Snipedown, just have that in the back of your mind, that like, he generally will find the things that are wrong with games, and he won't say too much what's right. And if you say, boy, that sounded like someone familiar, I'm also that way. I'm also a whiner. I also find the negatives in games much more than I find the positives. But that's because, and even with like food, like, if my girlfriend or someone I love makes me food and I don't and I like it. Sometimes I'm even close to loving it, but I'll tell you what I didn't like about it because it's my hopes that you'll hear what I didn't like. And if you want to adjust it or change it, whatever the fact is, like if I didn't like it X way because of Y reason, you might change it to make it better. But if you don't want to, that's okay too. But like all these pros are tied into these contracts and they kind of really can't speak off the cuff about this game. Just to break it down, like that's a long-winded way of saying like, this game is great for social players. The radar is really bad. The assault rifle balancing is really bad. The pistol balancing, if that's truthfully going to be your secondary weapon, and if competitive players are going to see a Halo CE-like game where we switch to the pistol to fight pretty much every life like you had to in Halo 1, the sidekick is really bad. People are going to rely a lot more on the assault rifle. And you saw how fast it was killing people, even if it was across the map against Spartan bots. Like, they're melting you across the map. It's insanity. And some of the new weapons in the game are pretty cool. Some of them are absolutely broken. I'm looking at the assault rifle that kills people in like 7 shots. That gun's kind of crazy. It shouldn't be in competitive. The Ripper probably could be a power weapon. I could see that making its way in there. The rocket's obviously going to be a staple, but a lot of people bag on Halo 3 because pretty much everyone only uses the BR, and it's like, from an arena shooter competitive standpoint, if everyone's on the same ground when they respawn, what's so wrong with that? And I saw that Sketch already kind of squashed an idea of having BR starts for the BTB because people are saying, like, he's even quoted in his own tweet saying, oh, well, there's plenty of weapons to scavenge. Like, from the competitive standpoint that we have to prepare for a tournament 10 days after release, that's not really what we want to fucking hear, dude. Like, you have guys and men and women, sorry. You have people booking trips from California, Seattle, all around the world to come to Raleigh, North Carolina 2 weeks before Christmas to compete for your game, to the point where VIP passes sold out in 3 minutes. Spectator passes are starting to get low. Team passes are expected to sell out, just like the old MLG days when 256 passes would go in 5 minutes. Like, you have a huge conglomerate of people coming to play this game, and you're not doing anything but telling us, just wait a few weeks for that. Wait a few weeks for that. Pretty soon, like, you're going to have us push back to November and we don't even have a clue, but people have already booked plane tickets and flights. And it's like, or plane tickets and hotels. And again, like 343 can't get out of their own way with that. But outside of like an esports trajectory, I'm still concerned that we're in almost October and the technical alpha is really unpolished, really clunky, and just really not that great. From like a optimization standpoint. From a gameplay standpoint, I found myself smiling sometimes because it oddly felt like Halo, and then other times I felt myself just shaking my head being like, what the fuck are they thinking? Like, the grapple shot. It's going to be super cool, like, for people to get into Social Slayer and fly around with that thing, but like in other cases it's just like I don't necessarily see it as like a viable option for people that are looking in a competitive nature. So we all have to, like, I, myself, especially, and other competitive players have to temper our expectations and realize, like, this is a technical build for social interaction. But I also saw streams of 4 pro players stacking lobbies going up against people that don't even know how to shoot, and they're screaming callouts. So it's like, you have this game coming out with all this prize pool money on the line, potential salaries being talked about as far as competitive players getting paid $500, $1,000, $1,500 a month to compete in this game from organizations and yourselves. You're going to stipend the top 16 teams, which means flights and hotels are paid for after the fact. So I go up, I pay for my flight and hotel, I place top 16, they reimburse me for that amount. And you expect us not to stack lobbies in Social Slayer and piss pound you and your QA tester who's 45, or you and your one coder who's 45 years old, and like people are mad about it, saying like, I can't believe these competitive teams are practicing. It's like, they don't have a choice. They have fucking 10 days before the tournament. So you can't have it both ways. You want esports to be involved, but you want to do it 10 days away. Like, they just keep shooting themselves in the foot with these things. It's just like, it just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. And I'm happy to get into the technical preview. I hope my game doesn't crash literally every game and I don't get banned for 15 minutes at a time when I do crash. But I just want to get my hands on this game and get a little bit more of a feel for it, because I just got so disgusted getting banned and kicked constantly that it's like I didn't even really play it that much. Like I did play it some, but like I just didn't give it the fair shake that it really deserves. And I can even make a conscious decision of like, even if this is just a technical preview that is going to be vastly different when it releases, I'm still going to go to Raleigh, North Carolina. It's only 3.5 hours away. I have a lot of friends that are going to be competing there. I'm going. Like, if I'm going to play or if I'm going to coach, because spectator passes are selling out, I'm going to be there. I would like to play. I would like to compete. I still have that energy in my blood. I still want to do that. But I don't want to, like, go out on a limb and just be like, yeah, maybe the game will work. Because what's going to happen is you're going to have these 256 teams come to Raleigh, North Carolina, and if servers for Xbox Live go down and you don't have a proper LAN implementation, the tournament stops. It happened to us in New Jersey on MCC. If we can't get on Xbox Live, the game doesn't fucking work. So we have 4 hours of dead time in a tournament, and you have people playing till midnight, and then they have to come back the next morning and play. It just doesn't, like, it all is headed towards this crash course of like, we didn't learn any better and we're just going to keep, doing dumb shit until people get sick of us. And people are sick of you, but that's my honest to God feeling about everything 343 right now and the technical preview. I might not have gotten into the game quite as much as people would have liked to hear my reviews, but the slide, I'll go back and just say the slide mechanic is really bad and clunky. I don't like it. And the clambering is like, it's okay, and all the maps are designed for clamber, so it's going to be that way, and until we get our hands on a forge and can remove it, that's a concern. I will say, for those of you out there that are competitive players or interested in competition and wondering about it, it does look like we're going to be able to customize almost all of these things in custom game lobbies. So you can turn off a lot of stuff in custom game lobbies, and there's a lot of customization there. So that is promising to me, at least, that we're going to be able to have that effect on it. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with this next alpha. The fact that so many casual fans are loving it is promising, because that means there's going to be support there. Mm-hmm. But the competitive side of things, we're still kind of up in the air, and don't let the contracted pros tell you anything different. It is a little concerning right now.
Yeah. And I even had some who was very high on the first build of the game, even with the optimization issues that were going on playing it on PC. Like, I even noticed that there were some concerning things with tweaks that were made that were very evident from the first build to this build that we're on right now. I liked. Did you get a chance to play Behemoth, the new map?
I didn't know.
Okay, I thought that was the highlight of this build right now. I think it feels like a very classic Halo map. I think the sizing of it is perfect for 4v4, and especially like objective-based games like CTF or something like that. Like, I think it's set up very well compared to the other 3 options with maps that we have right now.
Yeah, because Bazaar is like a Call of Duty map with 3 lanes. What they tried to do there, I will never know. I don't know who's designing these maps or who hurt these people, but like we gotta figure it out. We can't rely on Forge people who do it out of passion and get paid nothing to do it to make all our competitive maps again. It just can't happen.
Yeah, it's definitely a little concerning playing. Yeah, like Bazaar. Recharge is okay. That's what it's called, right? The Recharge,
the indoor map.
Yeah.
I think Recharge, for those of you, like, again, I know I sometimes overtake the show with esports news, and some of you might not care, but for what it's worth, a lot of the competitive community does feel like Recharge Strongholds is probably going to be in the competitive rotation. Mm-hmm. It does seem like a pretty decent competitive map, and that game type in general seems pretty solid. So, I mean, that's something, if you like Recharge, at least in your competitor, at least that might be promising to you if you want to play that.
Yeah, and then Live Fire, I'm kind of indifferent on. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Like,
it's a little bit too. It's a little too. There's too many. It kind of has the same issue as Bazaar, except for there's that random map that goes to there's that random route that goes through bottom middle. I just don't know why that's necessary. I know you're trying to give people an alternate route to different parts of the map, but that's not what Halo is all about. Like, I just see a lot of COD influence in the maps, basically, for lack of better term, or for lack of better words. And some people like COD maps, and COD maps are good for Call of Duty, but they're not good for Halo because it's just it's a different game if you haven't been able to tell. So yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of either one of those two. I thought Recharge had promise, but the biggest problem with Recharge for me was camping in corners with radar, the broken BXB mechanic that everyone was abusing, and assault rifles.
I definitely think, if you ask me, I mean, it comes down to Halo in general. The way that it's played, presented, is not only obviously one of the biggest things people will always say is, oh, it's the fair starts that, you know, what made Halo really from a competitive standpoint much more different and much more presentable to so many people compared to Call of Duty. You could choose loadouts and whatever. And like some of that will have, you know, drastic changes on it if one gun, you know, got buffed out of nowhere and and then you need to nerf it or something like that. But at least if you're going with Halo, you're seeing traditional competitive Halo. It's fair starts across the board. Everyone starts with the BR. Everyone starts with an AR. Everyone starts with a Magnum. Like stuff like that. But I think too, where we're seeing this disconnect with some of the map design here is Halo has always been and will always be, or should always be, I guess I should say, it should have much more sandbox influence comparatively. It should feel more open. It should feel more so that you have a little more freedom and isn't as restrictive. When I think of Call of Duty, I think of tight lanes, it's much more constrictive to what.
Yeah, the time to kill is so fast.
Right. And when you think of Halo, traditionally when you think of a lot of the maps and things like that, there is a breath of fresh air when it comes there, or in terms of not necessarily every single map is, you know, every player is right on top of each other at all points. The maps give you the ability to have, I think, a lot more. How do I want to explain this? I think there's a lot more tacticalness to that compared to, granted, much more Twitch shooter like Call of Duty. I just think that Call of Duty influence on these maps is kind of just pushing up against what they're trying to do with what I think they're trying to do with the presentation of this game is try to go take a step back and look more for the influence from the openness and the sandbox approach that traditional classic Halo games have, but try to implement, you know, some modern shooter mechanics to it that I just don't think necessarily fit. Like it just, we're, you know what, 14 years after Call of Duty 4, not everything has to be Call of Duty 4. Like, and I think that's, I mean, Call of Duty will always sell, so it's like, I get it, but I just think that we've seen so many different shooters come up now and have their own segment of, hey, it has its community, and you know, a lot of these games are having this, whether it's BRs, whether it's hero shooters, whether it's whatever, like, it doesn't always have to be, Halo used to be the trendsetter, and now it's following the trends, and I think there was a reason why it was a trendsetter because of some of the ways that made it much more unique. And while I think we're starting to see a little bit of that happen in this game and take some steps towards that, I'm still seeing a lot more influence in some other games that I was hoping I wouldn't see. And it just makes me a little concerned in that end. But in general, Behemoth, I really did like it. I thought that really made it feel much more like a Halo game with I thought it was perfect sizing, scaling, arena style map that I think worked really well for at least casual social Slayer or casual social CTF objective based games. So I really was a fan of it.
You think that, like, this is me just having the conversation we had, and I hadn't really thought on it like this. Do you think that they're like, it just feels to me like they've gone away from, it feels like they're trying to make the game more realistic in a weird way.
Mm-hmm. No, I
don't know if that,
agree.
Like, think about the way the maps are laid out, like Bazaar, they're trying to make it like a place in New Mombasa.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just feels like they're trying to make it very realistic, and I just don't know why that's a direction, if they think that maybe it'll sell better in 2021 if it's more realistic, but I just don't know why that would be the direction you're going to go if that is the case, which they'll never admit it, but that does almost feel like what's going on here, right?
Yeah. If you ask me, my biggest thing is, if we're being quite honest, I'm just fucking glad that, and this is a design choice, and that was a design choice in the art style of 4 and 5, and I'm not saying like, oh, Halo 4 and 5's art style was dog shit or whatever, because somebody made that and somebody thought that that was the right direction to go. I prefer the original art style, and I think this much more leans into that. I'm just fucking happy that everything in the game doesn't have the strength of the metallic on there and the gloss on it turned up to fucking 3 billion, and we don't have fucking lens flares 24/7. I can actually see what's going on in the game right now. I was worried because of that, because of 343's art direction that they had before, not of the actual art direction, but more so of them making that choice and deciding to go against doing, hey, we're having individual team colors, like we're going away from that and we're doing borders that will go around players. I worried about that at first, because of how, over the top their art direction was with lens flares and like their 3D models and textures really leaning into, hey, we got to make sure everything has a gloss to it, that I was like, that's going to blend together way too much. And I think that's going to be a problem with people really just differentiating from who's a, enemy and who isn't. Like,
right.
I think there's going to be an issue, but I think because of their choice of, hey, we're going to stick to more matte colors, or lighting, like there's going to be a roughness to all these models and textures, which not in a bad way, but a much more matte based, the light isn't as reflective off of the actual armor. I think that really everything in general, I think that leans in really well. Like, I really like the art style so far. Like, I think the Forerunner technology looks great compared to previous entries, or the past 2 entries, I should say. I think the architecture looks much more in line with a Halo game. I think the lighting looks much better. I just think in general, the art direction of this game is fucking fantastic. I've always been more of a fan of the just straight up, Mark armor. For like, I always just play with the standard Mark armor for the most part. I'll put the katana on the back, like in Halo 3, but I like the traditional Mark helmets, whether it's, CE, Halo 2, or Halo 3. Like, that's just me. I don't really go, or I'll throw an ODST helmet on there, but like outside of that, I don't really do too much on the customization end outside of colors and different things like that. But in general, though, like art direction wise, lighting, environments, everything like that, take designs out of them. Like, we're talking lanes, routes, whatever. Like, I really think it's starting to harken into the actual feel of Halo. And I think that's drawing a lot of people back in who may have just alone on, oh, that's not Halo anymore with 4 and 5. On that alone, I think are just at least somewhat interested in it, or, hey, I'm going to at least play campaign when it comes out. But I do think the base is there for this to be a good game. Like, it is. I truly think there is a base of here that this can be a good game, but I think it needs to lean into more of its player base again. And continue, like, it's great to have these technical previews, and more people are going to start getting in now, which is great. I just want to see a good balance between competitive and social. And I think that they've always had Bungie was able to do that so well with its communities, specifically when it came to Halo 3 and how much Halo 3 ballooned. But I definitely think there's some room for improvement, to say the least, with competitive, social, and the bandwidth along that. So I'm interested to play this weekend. Obviously, it's going to be big team battle, so it's obviously much more, social aspect, but I'm definitely excited to get in there and try it out and really see how far technically this game could be pushed when it's, 8v8. I think that'll be really, really interesting, if not more. So I'm excited to get into it this weekend still. And we still got, 2 months, a little over 2 months until this game comes out. Realistically, now granted, it wasn't necessarily the breadth of doing a competitive shooter, but the old adage is whenever The Last of Us was delayed for its final time, The Last of Us Part 1, that is, that I think it was like the 2 weeks that they needed to get that game wrapped up, Naughty Dog commends that as, if we didn't get those 2 weeks, it wouldn't have been the game that it became. So anything is really possible in those weeks. Game development is fucking ridiculously hard, but you know what? It is what it is, and I love this franchise. You love this franchise. We just want what's best for this franchise. I think it's in a better direction than it was before, for sure. I just want to see this game see its full potential, and I want to see it start off on the right foot. And like you said, it is concerning whenever you have 10 days, you said, after post-launch to have its first major announced, like major tournament announced. Like, really? Like, it's concerning to say the least whenever people who are in the competitive scene, who are trying to get used to this game, okay, like, if we only have 10 days, like, I want to get my hands on this, and I want to play a build that at least has, it may have issues with balancing, it may have issues with things that are in the game, like clipping or whatever, that's fine, but stability issues, I want to be able to play this. If you're putting, if we're getting this close to that date, like, I should be able to at least get through games and not have to wait 15 minutes because I got booted because the game crashed, not anything I did. Like, I didn't like rage quit or anything like that, but you're going to boot me? Like,
another thing that just popped into my head, and I don't know why it's taken this long to think of some of these things, but like, they booked the venue earlier this year. Probably, I remember Tashi tweeting about meeting with Adam Apicella, who runs Esports Engine, who used to run MLG, a while back, stating that they got a place booked. So I'm almost wondering if like they already booked a place and it was like we're fucked. Like, we have all this money already tied up into Raleigh, North Carolina. Like, we better figure something out because like, come hell or high water, we need to have an event there. Like, I'm wondering if that's almost what happened, which is like, if that's what happened, it's really shitty, but like, it is what it is, I guess. I mean,
right. Yeah. Cause if you got to imagine, say, it was originally lining up with the 20th anniversary of Halo and Xbox and releasing, right in that week or whatever, obviously that Friday or whatever, like, yeah, that would be a solid month that you would have to play this game. And like, that's still, quick, but at the same time, that's a lot, that's a lot more time than 10 days to be able to sit and, chew on this game a little bit. But I don't know. I'm still excited for this game. I'm actually really excited to finally get my hands on the campaign as well, because I love the lore of Halo. I'm definitely going to play that on console, but I am definitely ready to, I'm ready to see what Big Team Battle offers this weekend from just a casual standpoint. I think that'll be really fun, and I'm really curious to see how the optimization is on PC with that specifically. Really, when you're pushing that amount of detail and that amount of players on, a map, I'm curious to see how that really kind of works technically, with how it's, performed now. Because I do admit, on my end at least, I've definitely seen improvements with the optimization. I know that's not been the case for everyone by any means, but I definitely feel like the game is running better on my rig now, and my rig's pretty fucking decent, that I shouldn't have been barely pushing, 50 frames at points, on the first build, where now I'm getting a much more solid, like, 90 to 100 most of the time. And then obviously dips in different, certain places, but everyone's going to have those. But much more consistent and much more on the actual optimization end and performance end. I definitely have seen improvements, but excited to see what this weekend brings. I'm excited to play some Big Team Battle, and hopefully on Behemoth. Like I said, that map was a high spot for me, so I'm excited to get in there. But Mike, let's head into our second news story for the week, or first news story, I guess, but second topic for the week. And that's supposedly the Game Pass is at a lot bigger than what a lot of people expected. And I shouldn't say it was, their subscriber base was big before, but it supposedly has grown substantially. And so this comes from Cade Onder over on Screen Rant. It was pulled from an interview with Phil Spencer and Take-Two's Strauss Zelnick, their CEO. So Xbox might have some staggering subscriber numbers in an accidental slip from an interview. So like I said, Cade Onder over at Screen Rant, link in the description, go over there, give Cade a click. In a new interview with Xbox's Phil Spencer and Take-Two's Strauss Zelnick, it may have slipped that Xbox Game Pass has a whopping 30 million subscribers. Xbox Game Pass launched a little more than 4 years ago and has quickly become one of the most influential services in the gaming industry. Not only are there hundreds of games available to players at a low cost, but developers have seen big spikes in their titles after adding them to the service. It seems to be beneficial to a lot of parties, giving Xbox something to boast about. Earlier this year, it was reported by Windows Central's Jez Corden that Xbox Game Pass had 23 million subscribers. This was after Xbox had added some of its biggest third-party games day and date to the service via MLB The Show 21 and Outriders. It has since been reported that Microsoft plans to replace Xbox Live Gold with Xbox Game Pass when the latter service hits a sustainable number of subscribers. GameSpeed's Jeff Grubb estimates this could be around 40 to 50 million subscribers, and it sounds like Xbox isn't too far away from those numbers. During a chat with The Wrap via GameSpot, Take-Two's Interactive CEO Strauss Zelnick noted Xbox Game Pass has over 30 million subscribers. Head of Xbox Phil Spencer chimed in to note that Microsoft had only publicly confirmed 18 million subscribers, which caused Strauss to say, quote, "It's more than 18. Zelnick has been Zelnick has been somewhat critical of Xbox Game Pass in the past, despite putting some older titles on the service. So it's likely that he may have access to these numbers for the service. It's also entirely possible he was just misremembering the actual number or was reiterating a rumor he heard and confused it with fact. Since Zelnick doubled down on it being more than 18 million, it does seem likely he has been told a more recent and accurate count for Xbox Game Pass subscribers. The service has been growing at a rapid rate and will likely only continue to do so with the launch of Halo Infinite and Forza Horizon 5 later this year. On top of all of that, all future Bethesda titles, including Starfield, will also launch on Xbox Game Pass on day one. Marvel's Avengers recently joined Xbox Game Pass as well, ensuring that the service has ample support from both first and third-party studios. As of right now, Microsoft Game Pass's numbers are about 9 months old, but it wouldn't be surprising if the company gives an update on them after the upcoming holiday season. So, we've known that Game Pass has seen steady and at times heavy growth over the past few years, but the potential of the service really kind of almost doubling really within the year before launch of Microsoft's two major titles this holiday season, Forza Horizon 5 and Halo Infinite, from their first-party studios, that is, at least, it's impressive to say the least. So, what does this say, Mike, about the current state of on-demand game subscription services right now in September of 2021, or I guess October 1st of 2021 when you're listening to this? It's not just Microsoft that's seeing success of it. Both Sony and Nintendo with, Sony's PlayStation Now and Nintendo's online services with their backlog or their back catalog of games being available, through their subscription service. They're both seeing, a nice bump in success with that. And even major third-party publishers like EA and Ubisoft with their on-demand services, they're seeing success with that. But Microsoft obviously is the face of this movement in the industry with Game Pass and really kind of the flag bearer with this. So, and with Starfield, Elder Scrolls 6, Perfect Dark, Fabled, Avowed, and tons more on top of just unannounced stuff that we, expect is eventually going to be here, like the next Fallout, are we about to enter the true kind of tipping point of on-demand game services in terms of becoming like this true household way of gaming?
Yeah, I think, one of the reasons why, we've talked about the amount of just the sheer amount of value on this service for a very long time on this show. And it's not one of the reasons why we wanted to start the show, but definitely one of the driving factors was the fact that Xbox is coming out with this service and it was going to be a terrific value. And that's almost like pointing out the obvious, right? Like saying, no shit, they're going to give away all these free games. But you also have to go back to remember what it was like when they first announced this. There were people that were saying this will never work. There's no way you can give away this much value and keep making money. Nobody really knew what was coming when this was first announced. We just thought, we're going to get these free games on this service, and that's going to be cool. But to have first-party exclusives going out for free, or at least day one on Game Pass, that's a huge commitment that they made. And that was kind of doubling, not even doubling, but that's like tripling and quadrupling down on the fact that they thought this was going to be the thing going forward. And as far as Xbox is concerned, if you guys might not remember that, like, they're the ones that took the gamble on HD DVDs for the Xbox 360, which is why it didn't have a Blu-ray tray. Like, they have lost on gambles before, and it wasn't like a huge differentiator between the two because they still had a lot of great first-party exclusives for Xbox 360. But there are a lot of households out there that probably was like, well, with a PS3, I get a Blu-ray player and a game console all in one. Why wouldn't I go with that one instead of the Xbox? So they already lost out on one of their big gambles. And for them to just go right back to it and gamble even harder on this, that shows that they knew what they were doing. They had an idea what they were doing. And, you know, with how much money they made, even if Game Pass was failing drastically, it's something that I think they would continue doing until they thought it was going to catch on or until they knew it was dead in the water. Mm-hmm. But I see it like Nintendo does it. Like I have it signed up for $3 a month for Nintendo so I can play the NES originals. Like a lot of services have kind of, you know, gone to this style, and why wouldn't you? You're creating value for the game, like your customers, which is just, it's such an easy thing to do also. Like I know there might be a lot of upfront cost that is incurred by the companies like Microsoft and Sony whenever they do these things. But you also have to realize that it is an easy way for them to create so much value for the customers in such a simple way. Like if it works on modern technology, it can be put on Game Pass because it'll give your customers more of a reason to subscribe to it. And I'm a person who's subscribed to Game Pass Ultimate, but I haven't, like, I'm subscribed to Game Pass Ultimate because I told myself, oh man, like, it'd be sick to play some games on PC. But let me tell you, I have not played a single Xbox game on my PC. I'm subscribed to Game Pass Ultimate like a fool, and I don't even use that feature that Ultimate is geared towards. But, like, it is just such a great value. Like, recently I got to play a lot of Madden 21. Like, I hadn't played a football game since maybe Madden 15, and I got to play quite a bit of Madden 21 for free because EA Connect, or the EA Plays wrapped into that now. I get to play a game like FIFA a lot, which is a game that I would never buy, but when I'm feeling like, my brother texts me, hey, do you want to play a game of FIFA against each other? We just get on and he plays FIFA a lot, and my brother, like, if I'm good at shooters, which I generally always have been, he's the guy that's like super good at sports games. I can't really beat him in sports games, but he doesn't play shooters against me anymore. But I don't want to play like NHL against him because even though I'm pretty good at NHL, he's just like, he's super good at it for some reason. So if he texts me and says, hey, you want to play FIFA? Like, yeah, it's on Game Pass. I already have it for free on my hard drive. Like, that's so much value that is just such an afterthought for some people. But for me, I realize how great it is just to be able to play these games for free if I really wanted to. I'm the type of person that's a snob. Like, you tagged me in a thing that Neo is free on Epic Game Store, but if it's not on Steam, I don't want to hear it. Like, I'm that type of person, but like Game Pass on my Xbox, like I got to play MLB The Show for free day one because it's on Game Pass now. Haven't played a baseball game in 100,000 years, it feels like. So there's all these really awesome features with Game Pass that I feel like, you know, people get to take advantage of. And it's clear that I'm guessing the number probably isn't 31. He probably doesn't have or 30 million. He probably doesn't have like an exact accurate number, but the fact that Spencer was so close or so quick to try to backpedal on it proves that he wasn't far off.
Right. That's my thing. It's clear that the number obviously it's
massive.
Right. Yeah. That it's increased, and I think they wanted to obviously control that message because hell, if that's where it's at, if it's in the ballpark of 30 million, let's say 27, like let's say somewhere between 25 and 30 million. For that to be where it's at, starting at 18, you know, at the beginning of the year or earlier part of the year, to now and pushing 30 million without Halo Infinite, without Forza, because Forza's huge, no matter if it's the biggest thing here in the States, it's huge internationally for us. Like, the fact that those two games aren't even out yet or close to being close, they're close, but like they're not out yet in a true sense, like, that's nuts. Just imagine what Game Pass is going to be whenever, you know, people who are interested in Forza, but yeah, I don't know if I want to go and spend $60, $70 on it. Oh shit, I can just get on Game Pass for, you know, 3 months for $1 or whatever it is now at this point. Like, it's a no-brainer. Like, jump right in and get that. Like, so, and just imagine when Halo's going to be out with it getting a, overall pretty positive response right now. It's only going to continue if that's the case with, more and more from a casual standpoint. Like, I just think this is, at this point, it's only inevitable that, which sucks because I'm a fan of physical media still. Like, obviously my Steam library is pushing, getting closer and closer to 300 games on there. Like, I obviously do buy digital media, especially, I'm buying more digital media as the years go on, but like, I am a fan of collecting, physical games still at this time. Like, I like going and buying, going to the store, buying the game and getting the case and collecting them. Like, that's always been my thing.
Nothing wrong with that.
Right. Yeah. And that's always going to be there, but it's going to become more and more of a niche thing to happen. Like, it just is. And that's, I get that. But
which is better if you're a collector. It's going to give you more value down the road.
Right.
If that's what you're going for, which I know you're not, but like, it doesn't hurt that, like, you have a sealed copy of Halo Infinite and it's like, it's worth a lot of money because people just don't have sealed copies of it.
Right. Yeah.
Or they just don't have physical copies of it.
Right. Yeah.
Especially with it being free.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just, it is what it is kind of thing. So, I think we're looking at about, I think, the true, like, I don't want to say the straw that broke the camel's back in a negative way, but like in a way that we're going to see, I think, a tipping point come here soon where the dam might break. And that's not just, Game Pass. I'm talking, Sony's answer to true, granted, you can now download stuff on PlayStation Now, but like having a service that does work with the PS5 offering, some PS5 games eventually down the road. And, Nintendo now just last week announcing, hey, we're bringing the N64 and Genesis to the service. Now, granted, you got to pay extra for that, but it's $20 a year for the Nintendo Online service. People will be like, okay, if you got to pay $5 extra, I don't think people are going to be too upset about paying $25, compared to. So as you're getting more stuff in games that do have a little bit more depth, maybe like in terms of the amount of time you could play them and things like that, like there's nothing like, it's just these services, it's just going to keep getting more and more and more. And I think we're really about to see that tipping point happen because of the amount of emphasis Game Pass is getting. I mean, just imagine in the future, Perfect Dark, Fable, obviously Elder Scrolls 6 eventually, Starfield next year. Like, when you can get in and play these games for almost next to nothing, just off the rip, like, it's hard to argue against that. There's no other argument to be like, well, I have the technology to play these games. Oh, I can get in for, $1 for 3 months, or, at the most you're paying $15 a month for all of this, the full package. Like, I'm paying for 2 games at the end of the year, 2 full price games. Like, most people are doing that already, and I could have access to tons of more games. Why not? Yeah. So, yeah.
And I think Spencer, being a businessman, like, he doesn't want Sony to hear how much money they're making off of it, because like, it's a monkey see, monkey do world in corporate America, where you see your competitor doing something very well, you're going to try to, go ahead and emulate that the best that you can. And they already have, but if there can be any type of credence given to those types of numbers, you're going to see Sony and Nintendo jump. Well, Nintendo usually always, marches to their own beat. They usually don't have to copy the trends, but they will. I mean, you're just looking free money. Like, you're just giving away free money at that point. Like, if you don't do that, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because people are going to subscribe to it. It's clear that's going to happen.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
And I think with Microsoft, like, tying Xbox Live into it was probably the smartest thing they could ever do, because it ballooned those numbers up. And if that's what you're looking to give to investors, to say like, look, this is why we did what we did with these free games, investors are going to be like, yeah, that's good with me.
No, definitely. Absolutely. So it's going to be interesting to see what the back portion of this year kind of plays out with Microsoft and Game Pass and all that. So I'm excited. It's looking good right now. So, Mike, let's head into our last news article for this week. And once again, I believe it's pulling from the same interview, but if not, we're hearing from Phil Spencer again. And Unfortunately, not good news. And it's something you've been facing too, Mike, because you're, trying to get this system as well. But Xbox boss Phil Spencer says console supply issues will continue into 2022. This comes from Tom Ivan over at VGC. As always, link in the description. Console shortages will continue into 2022, according to Xbox boss Phil Spencer. The head of Microsoft's games business told The Wrap that a shortage of chips wasn't the only thing stopping the company getting as many Xbox Series X and S consoles onto store shelves as it would like. Quote, I think it's probably too isolated to talk about it as just a chip problem, he said. When I think about what does it mean to get the parts necessary to build a console today and then get it to the markets where the demand is, there are multiple kind of pinch points in the process. And I think, regretfully, it's going to be with us for months and months, definitely through the end of this calendar year and into the next calendar year. The thing that most people, that's most disappointing is just the fans' disappointment, Spencer continued. People really want this new generation of consoles. They're good consoles, both from us and other platform holders, and they want the new functionality. We're working hard to bring them to market, but it's going to be a challenge that we'll work through for quite a while. Console manufacturers have struggled with stock shortages for over 18 months now after the COVID-19 pandemic shut down essential supply chains and saw demand for gaming devices increase significantly as countries implemented social distancing measures. In particular, the PS5 and Xbox Series X, as well as the new RTX graphics cards from Nvidia, have been incredibly difficult to secure, with most restocks selling out within minutes. Last Thursday, Best Buy sold limited quantities of PS5 and Xbox Series X consoles in store for the first time this year, attracting large queues at numerous locations. Chip makers Toshiba recently warned that supply issues for power regulating chips will stretch into next year and perhaps even beyond. Takashi Kambuchi, a director in charge of semiconductors at one of the company's units, told Bloomberg, quote, the supply of chips will remain very tight until at least September next year. In some cases, we may find some consumers not being fully served until 2023, end quote. So I think we've all been expecting to see stock troubles with both next-gen consoles, given how publicized the silicone shortage has been for those who pay attention to the world of tech and how much the whole tech industry is suffering with it, specifically, retailers who are retail when it comes to supplying CPUs for a plethora of these devices. But the thought of fans not being able to have relatively normal access to purchasing the newest game consoles, potentially 3 years after their launch, is pretty jaw-dropping to say the least. So, Mike, do you think this shortage could potentially do really more damage than we think to the access of traditional home console gaming long-term? With how low, like we were just talking about, the barrier to entry is, become with cloud gaming and subscription services with them, anyone can really play most modern titles through a browser or another supported device at their home. At least one in their house can probably support it in some way. Could this potentially reverberate longer than we think?
Yeah, I think it doesn't help when people are scalping the living shit out of your consoles.
Yeah, that too.
That's something that I know people are growing very, very frustrated with, the botting and everything else that's been, that's taken kind of hold of a lot of different communities, including the graphics cards community, which I feel like they do a pretty good job with the graphics card. Having the raffles makes it a little bit less bot dependent. But these shoe manufacturers, they don't really give a shit who gets the shoes. They just sell it to whomever they can get to buy it, basically. And they're like, yeah, here. And even if it's a bot that's going to be for resale, they don't have any way to really stop those people, which is really shitty. But I think that's also damaging it a lot too, is people are kind of sick of that game. People are sick of the stuff they want going to robots and being resold on eBay for double, sometimes even triple. So the only way you can really stop people from scalping is to stop buying scalped stuff. And I have made it a point that, like, I'm not going to support that type of behavior. I'm just not. Like, I get that people make money off of it, and for some people, like, that might be, like, right now, that's probably the main source of income for a lot of people, is like scalping tennis shoes and scalping anything they can scalp, because it's a way to make money. And, like, I get that people need to make money to live, and I can respect and understand that. But, like, I'm not going to be the guy that's going to buy scalped product. I'm just not going to do it because I can see the damage that it does to people. And I think that customers are sick of competing with bots. I know I certainly am, to get this stuff because people can make such a quick and easy buck by reselling this stuff, and people have to stop supporting people who are scalping these things in order for it to stop. That's the only way that it's going to come to a head and end, and I unfortunately don't see people doing that. I'm sure Christmas time this year, people are, going to just want to get their kids the latest and greatest, and they're going to, just go ahead and buy something off of eBay because that's what they have to do to make their child happy. And it's a shitty thing, like, that we're starting to get into the Christmas season, and that's just the reality of it, though, that people are going to be buying this because they're desperate to get their child what they want for Christmas.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's kind of what, I'm at too. I mean, I'm glad I lucked out and was able to get both at launch just out of pure luck. I mean, for the most part, I mean, it really was luck. And, I've had stuff already too. Like I was able to, I thought, get a pre-order on the Halo Infinite Series Elite controller, the limited edition one, and tried to get that and thought I secured one, and here they canceled it. And I looked literally yesterday, Wario posted a link for it on the Microsoft Store, so I was like, oh, perfect. Was there right as it opened up and got it into my cart and got through that process, and as instantly as I hit place, it got waxed.
Yep.
And it literally was 30 seconds after it went live. Like, it's just...
That's what happened to me with the Xbox, with the Halo Series X.
Yeah, and even trying to get that, like, we both have been trying to, like, if I'm able to get one, I'm just going to give it to you, you pay me for it, or, like, I'd like to try to get one myself as well, and, sell my, my standard Series X, because I like the Halo one, but at the same time, too, like, it's just like, I'm with you. I'm not going to go and scalp them. Like, I've been wanting to try to, like, upgrade. Like, I'm thinking about maybe getting a new one of the 30 series RTX cards. Like, granted, I have a 2080 Super, so I'm, like, pretty happy where I'm at. But, like, with doing...
You're doing some video editing and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, like, doing 3D modeling and shit like that. Like, I would like to have a beefier setup. But, like, I would like to beef my setup even more if possible. And if it's going to be, something I'm trying to do long term, or attempt to make a career out of, or something like that, who knows. But, like, I'm gonna need that power, but I can't fucking do that without paying double the price. And it's just shitty. It sucks. And I just really see this being like, okay, potentially 3 years after these consoles come out and we're still these quote unquote next gen consoles. I mean, hell, the Switch is going to be on, potentially on the back half of its life cycle here soon. And, like, you're having, now granted, like, with the OLED coming out, I was lucky I was able to get one because I wasn't going to get it at first, but I know Molly plays my Switch a lot, so it'd be easy for her to be like, hey, here's your Switch, you can play Animal Crossing on it, like, I'll get the OLED, you get this one. Like, but hopefully that stock improves, but it's not gonna. Like, people who get these systems aren't, and yes, the pandemic has fucked a lot of this up, but, like, you got to think that, like, people like Microsoft and even Google to an extent, like with Stadia, or Amazon with Luna, like, they're going to be, like, rubbing their hands together. Like, we got the solution right here. You can't get these consoles. Cool. Pay us, whatever, $10, $15 a month, and you could play it right on your PC's browser. You don't need a heavy PC. You could use a Chromebook or whatever. Like, you play it right here without downloading anything, and, plug a controller in. Cool. You're in the whole, like, $20 or whatever at the end of the day, or $30, like, for you to play all these games or whatever. Like, it's just, I think this could potentially, if it goes to 2023, like, worst case scenario, I think that could have a big implication on what's happening. Now, granted, it seems like consoles are becoming more available than they were at launch, obviously, but it's still not where it needs to be. I mean, even the Wii, like, yeah, that took, like, a full year or so to finally start to get, like, relatively in stock, but, like, not 3 years. I mean, that thing was, like, readily available. Like, my parents were able to walk in 2 years after the fact and easily buy a Wii U for a Christmas. Like, or a Wii, not a Wii U, but a Wii for Christmas. Like, if that's not going to be the case with these consoles, like, we're in trouble. Like, I think home console, not the end all be all, but I think you could really take a hit and really, really see some major changes come to the way how people play on a, consistent level. But
yeah, and it's a shame because I feel like, you voiced your troubles with trying to get a graphics card, and like I think custom built computers I don't think they're on their way out, but people like, because they're able to sell wholesale to Alienware to make these computers so they can get a whole bunch of them. Like, I feel like that's going to be something that you're going to see custom built computers kind of take a back seat, because if someone can like, oh, I can't get my son an Xbox One Series X, but I can get him a pre-built Alienware that'll run the games that he wants to run. Yeah. I'll do that. Like, you're going to see the pre-built computer game.
Hell yeah.
Probably boom a little bit because it already has the parts you need in it. Like, you don't have to fight with people to get the graphics card that you want or need. Like, it used to be the cheaper option to just build it all yourself, but now I think it's going to go the other way, unfortunately.
Yeah,
because I loved building my computer. It was a great experience.
Oh, dude, same here. I mean, granted, I've always been into tech, but like over the past 5-6 years that I've been getting into PCs and stuff more and actually learning how to build my computers, like, I adore it. It's made me adore technology so much more. Like, and actually take pride in learning the ins and outs of the hardware end. I've always been good at software end, but like never hardware. I've always been way over, like, much more hesitant to touch that stuff. But like I'll do a case swap like every 2 years or something now, like just to go in there, switch stuff up and like rebuild it or something like that. Like, or, build people, like I've built PCs for like friends and family and shit now too. Like, it's just like, it's great. I love it. I have so much fun doing that shit and picking out parts and whatnot and like benchmarking and stuff. Like, to me, my nerdiness, like, I fucking love that shit. But like, nothing beats the plug and play nature of a console. Like, that you just plug it into your TV, plug it into the wall, hit the power button, you're good to go. Where, yeah, that is the one thing with PCs sometimes. Oh, the voltage on my CPU is messed up. Oh, it might be something with my power supply. Or, oh, why am I getting hard crashed? Or why am I getting screen tearing on this? Why am I doing this? Why am I getting, blue screened? Or why isn't this starting up? Like, oh, my drivers are out of date. Oh, I got to go and do that. Like, it is very modular and is very great in that way to a lot of people, but there are headaches that come with that. But I just see if the silicon shortage and stuff like that continues on, I mean, if these consoles aren't readily available by, Christmas of next year, I could see a real problem happening, like with how people play games comparatively. I shouldn't say a problem, but a real shift in how people kind of, really engage with games and how they play them. So
it's not even just gaming too, because I know people were talking about there's a possibility that the new iPhone could be like 20% more because of the silicone chip shortage. Like, you're talking about a phone that's already $800 baseline going up 20% more. Like, that's a huge difference. And I know there's going to be people out there that get it day one regardless, but this is just so far reaching. Like, the chip shortage is so far reaching. Like, if you try to go buy a new car pretty soon, like, it's hard to get cars. It's hard to get this. It's crazy, how the reach of the COVID effect is just so far. I knew it was going to change the world as we knew it, but like, to the extent that it's changed it, I wish it would just chill out a little bit.
No,
I know everyone feels that way, but like, even like, not even just like the COVID epidemic itself, like the illness. I'm talking about how bad it's affecting everyday life for everyone. I wish it would just chill the fuck out with that too.
Right. No. Oh, 100%. Totally agree. Mike, I think that's going to do it for episode this week. But before we wrap up, let's head into Party Chat. If you're new to the show, Party Chat's where we propose one question at the end of each week that we want to discuss with you guys for the week. Could be what's your favorite story beat in the game, what you've been playing, just simple stuff like that. Could be a little more in depth, talking about mental illness or things like that. And after answering the question ourselves, we kick it over to you to tweet or email your responses to the question over on our Twitter at GPGC Podcast or bonusaccessory@gmail.com. And we'll read some of those responses the following week. Last week's question: what do we see released first? A revision of the Series S or Xbox Series X? And Carl J emailed us saying a streaming only box that will eventually replace the Series S, which I definitely see coming out relatively soon. Maybe not replacing the Series S, but I could see that evolving and
that's an alternative.
Yes. So, Mike, this week's question: do you expect Avowed, the new fantasy RPG, first-person RPG that's very much heavily looking like an Elder Scrolls-esque experience that's coming from Obsidian Games, do you expect Avowed to be as popular as many expected it to be now that Microsoft owns Bethesda and will release Elder Scrolls 6? Do you see, really even internally, do you see it being as popular? Or do you think they'll be, be able to differentiate between each other enough that it will be able to appease multiple fan bases?
So you're saying, like, do I think that Avowed will take a hit because Elder Scrolls 6 will be on the console? Or, well,
it's just in-house now. Like, do you think, because for a long time, I think when Avowed was first released and people were thinking, oh, cool, the people who made Fallout New Vegas are going to basically said, oh, well, Elder Scrolls 6 is taking a long time to come out. Fuck it, we'll make our own Elder Scrolls game. And are releasing, once they got the Microsoft funding by getting bought by them, releasing Avowed, a lot of people were thinking, hey, this is the answer to that. Well, flash forward, a few months later and Microsoft buys Bethesda. So it's like, now that they have that, okay, do you think it'll be as popular now that, hey, there's this renewed energy around Bethesda? Not that there wasn't before, but there's a lot more talk around Bethesda now that they're under Microsoft and more buzz again around, hey, seeing the Elder Scrolls 6 and stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess my answer is I think both will do fine. I think Avowed is obviously going to come out probably, I would say, sooner than Elder Scrolls 6.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that it'll probably do. I think it'll be okay by itself because I do feel like they, the team at Obsidian, provide their own type of experience that Bethesda won't recreate. But they're also not going to give you a Bethesda-like experience. Could it pass as like similar? Absolutely, but I think it'll do okay by itself. I think it'll be all right.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I think there's enough bandwidth between the two, and I think Obsidian, while granted, made a great Fallout game and made it, there are similarities. It was made in the same engine. It had a lot of similarities, but I think what made Obsidian's iteration of Fallout stand out a little bit more was their approach to, world building and dialogue and writing and everything like that. But like, I think that's where we're going to see a difference between the two where, Avowed may much more have more traditional RPG roots to it or more, traditional medieval, dialogue or something like that compared to Elder Scrolls, which has been trending towards more of a casual, like blending the line between action adventure and RPG much more than standard RPG. And I think we're going to see still a blend of that with Obsidian's Avowed, but I think it'll be much more attuned to a hardcore audience compared to that we might see Elder Scrolls. So I think both will still have the breadth of themselves, but now that we're kind of seeing this renewed talk around Elder Scrolls 6 now after Bethesda was bought by Microsoft, I still think we're going to be able to, both will be able to live on their own and kind of stand on their own feet. Kind of like whenever people saw, hey, Days Gone is announced with Sony from Sony Bend, and, The Last of Us Part 2 is being shown now too, and them both kind of releasing within a year window-ish, right around there. Like, one's not going to cannibalize the other, are they, kind of thing, and they both did each their own kind of thing. They were two separate games. Last of Us much more linear in its approach, where compared to Days Gone was a much more of an open world action game. Like, they both can survive in their own manner, and I think this is going to be the case too. So, Mike, I think that's going to do it for our episode now, finally, this week. Why don't you tell people where they can find you on the internet, talk about all we talked about, Halo Infinite, talking about Game Pass subscriptions, all that jazz. Where can people find you on the interwebs to talk about all the nerdy stuff we talked about today?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitch or on Twitter, sorry, at TOYSXLDIER. That's Toy Soldier, and the second O is an X. Or you can find me on Twitch at MP_Toy Soldier.
Nice. And as always, I'm your host, Travis White, aka Travelus, on most internet platforms, including at Travelus_ on Twitter. That's TRAVLESS_. You could also find me streaming time to time on twitch.tv/Travelus_, same as Twitter. And you want to play some video games with me, you can do so over on Xbox Live at just regular old Travless. That's TRAVLESS. And this, ladies and gentlemen, has of course been your newest episode of the Game Pass Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox, Xbox Game Pass, and PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversation around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us, rate us, review us, all that jazz, wherever you get a podcast at. Help us out. Help a guy out. And follow us on Twitter, @GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games like and our dope giveaways. Mike, I think that's going to do it for our episode finally. Thank you everyone so much for listening, sharing, and being a part of our growing community. Game on, wash your hands, listen to doctors, Black Lives Matter, and we will see you next week.